Hello, welcome into WLOI, Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOI.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle, Loyola's premier sports talk radio show, airing every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. and every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Welcome to our first Monday show of the calendar year of 2023. I am your host today, Jeffrey Bazzi, alongside my co-host, Jimmy Cody. Jimmy, how is your day going so far?
My day's going well. My one class just got canceled, so I had no class.
Sounds like a great day if
Yeah,
you
I
ask
don't
me.
know. Just another day, I guess.
Yeah.
But now I'm doing the show, finally doing something. But I don't know. So far, so good, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good way to start the
Great
work week.
weekend of football, so there's that.
Yeah, so let's just get right into it, as you always say. So we're going to recap the four divisional round playoff games here from the NFL, which all took place over the weekend. And we're going to start with the game last night out in San Francisco between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And coming to this game, Dallas was coming off a big win in Tampa Bay where they silenced a lot of haters, I guess you could say. And Dak Prescott, their quarterback, played very well. And then on the San Francisco side, they continued to roll. They were coming off a win against Seattle and Brock Purdy and company, and that defense. They just continue to do what they do, and that's just play really well and win games. And then the two sides met last night, and I don't know if it was as high scoring as maybe you thought, Jimmy. And I thought a lot of people coming in thought might have been a higher scoring game than it was. The final was 19-12, and it was kind of a field goal fest for most of the game. But Dallas did strike in the second quarter on a touchdown to Dalton Schultz, and then San Fran answered with two field goals, and they were kind of just trading blows, and they weren't really scoring much. And then the fourth quarter, San Francisco got out to that 16-9 lead when McCaffrey ran it in, and then Maher answered the field goal, and then Robbie Gould's field goal was enough, and then Dallas did not get down the field on their final possession. So I don't know, Jimmy. What did you see last night? It was kind of a weird game because Dak the previous week played really well. Last night he just was not anywhere near that. And Brock Purdy on the other side, I thought he was okay, but I didn't think he was great as we've been accustomed to seeing. So I guess you could talk about those two. But what did you see? I guess what was your takeaway from last night?
Yeah, so we got to start with Dak because he's the story here. I mean, he was horrible. There's no other way to say it, but he was not good. I mean, could you imagine how many more yards CeeDee Lamb would have had if he had a competent quarterback? Imagine he had Joe Burrow, probably would have had 200 yards receiving. He was all over those guys. And another guy who I thought of like his presence, more so not presence, of not being there was Tony Pollard. Once that injury happened, the offense changed completely. And that was when the Dak problems I felt like really started to arise. I mean, they got 6 points off Dak turnovers, but it wasn't just the turnovers. It was, it was him, holding on to the ball too long and then taking sacks. It was his inaccuracies. Like he had that throw down the field to Michael Gallup. That throw was inaccurate. I mean, it was just one thing after another. Just I don't. It's just every time the Cowboys get to the playoffs, they just are a disaster. There's no other way to say it. They are a disaster. I mean, I thought the defense played really well. Honestly, like 19 points, you're thinking you have a chance to win the game.
They definitely held up their end of the bargain.
I thought so. The Cowboy offense, though, did not. And once Pollard was gone, I'm sorry, Zeke is just not like people thought it was like a 1-1A situation. I'd been saying on this show how I thought no, Tony Pollard needs to be the guy for them. And once he got hurt, that really changed their offense completely.
And I believe their reporter, Todd Archer, he reported it was a broken leg. So it's a really bad injury. Yep. So God knows how long he'll be out. But yeah, I don't know. Going forward for the Cowboys, they'll have a lot of questions to
mainly on
answer in the offseason.
Mainly on offense because CeeDee Lamb's an awesome receiver. Dalton Schultz is, I believe, going to be a free agent. So he did not play good yesterday. I would let him walk. I mean, they have other good tight ends.
Yeah, and I don't think Ezekiel Elliott has any guaranteed money left on his deal. I still think he has 4 years left on his deal, but there's something about the guarantee money where I think he already has all of it. So I don't know if that has to do with anything, but
no, Zeke could be gone.
That's
it might be his last snap as a Cowboy. Might have been him getting absolutely pancaked yesterday. I mean, that was a disaster on that last play. That was one of the worst last plays I've seen in a while. I mean, that was just a train wreck.
Oh, Zeke at center,
blown up as the center. What? Who came up with that play? Whoever came up with that play should just be fired. And honestly, too, I think they're gonna have questions at coach.
I
Like,
think so too.
listen, Sean Payton has a great relationship with Jerry Jones. And honestly, I did not think McCarthy like stood out as like someone who was leading them there. I mean, I don't think he necessarily did anything wrong, but I mean, Sean Payton, like we've seen what he can do out there, and I think it's more than what McCarthy can do, to say the least, right?
No, definitely. And he's also being pursued by other teams as well. So it will be interesting to see who he goes to
Oh,
because I'm sure
absolutely.
that's going to be resolved somewhat soon. But
Well, I don't know if you saw, but Sean Payton's second interview with the Broncos was delayed because he's now meeting with the Cardinals.
oh,
So that is,
interesting.
yeah, I think that's a sign that he may want the Cardinals job more than he wants the Denver job.
Yeah, I know how you would probably feel about that.
I'd be
Hmm.
pretty disappointed, yes, obviously.
Um,
But today's not about the Broncos and Sean Payton, but just in general, we're just talking about the coach.
but back to Dak, like you
Yeah,
said, he was nowhere near what he was the previous week. And he kind of played like he did down the stretch in December when he had basically an interception every game. And even the completion percentages weren't that high. I mean, last night he was 23 for 37, but
he got outplayed by Purdy. That's the problem.
that is the problem.
That's the problem. Like Dak Prescott is paid like he is a top 10 quarterback, if not even higher than that.
And Purdy's a guy, no offense to him, but he was
Yeah,
third
he
stringer to start the season.
third stringer who's Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Relevant.
I
Now he's Mr. Relevant.
Yeah. I mean, you saw what Skylar Thompson was doing, who was a seventh round pick as a quarterback.
Almost won in Buffalo.
No, well, he was horrible. That's my point. The like expectations are very low. But now, like when Purdy's out there, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Jeff, and this is just something like I'm gonna warn you. Purdy's playing with a lot of confidence, and I don't. I think he thinks he can sling it if they have to get into like a shootout. Like I really
Yeah,
do
I
think
think
like
so too.
I don't know. I really am excited for that NFC championship next week. But the last thing I want to say about the 49ers as well was they were able to overcome like a lot of mistakes. I felt like when they had that punt that was muffed, their
Mhm.
defense stood tall because at that point, if Dallas scored a touchdown, Dallas would have really taken over that game.
Oh, no doubt. And they missed their opportunity. I mean,
Mhm.
that's where you got to cash in. They
Yeah,
didn't cash in.
they won the 49ers won, I felt like because of their defense. Their defense was exceptional. Like it showed why it was the number one defense yesterday. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, for sure. I think the O line for San Fran wasn't great.
No, it wasn't great.
I
It
think that would
wasn't.
probably be the only critique I would have, really.
That and then also there were some plays where there was like some miscues. There was one play where Purdy was looking for Debo and Debo didn't was he thought he was supposed to be blocking, but the screen pass was actually for him. So
Right.
there's miscues
But the
everywhere.
difference is Purdy doesn't make mistakes compared to Prescott when he had two picks. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
absolutely.
it. You can't give him the ball away.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The 49ers got two field goals off those turnovers.
Yeah, well, they found a way in the end because it wasn't the cleanest of games on both sides, but San Fran pulled away. But how about the other game? The other game was a little bit of a shocker, I think, to some, but maybe not to you or other Bengal lovers out there.
Yeah.
So
Bengals, Bills.
let's get into it. So the Bengals took on the Bills in snowy Buffalo yesterday. I think that was another interesting storyline there. The Bengals went into Buffalo and beat the Bills 27-10. And the start of this game was just all Cincinnati. They come down
It
and
was
they
over
marched
before it
down
started. It
right
was
down the
over
field.
before it started. Once I saw that first drive and I saw Jamar gritting in the end zone, I knew Buffalo was going to be screwed. I mean, they went down with such ease at the beginning of the game. And then the Bills just looked demoralized from that point on. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they looked like ghosts out there.
Yeah, they looked lifeless. Lifeless.
And I'll say it again, and I don't think we really talked about this a lot in the show, at least with the Bills, because we usually just talk about Josh Allen. It's usually just about Josh Allen, but they cannot run the ball. And this has been a problem for the last year or so, but I feel like it's more of a glaring issue now just because they've had playoff failures the last 3 years. They haven't reached the Super Bowl. And I feel like not the window's closing, but I don't know. How much longer is it going to be open?
Well, there's
Ish.
so many questions going into this season because we had that whole incident where Stephon Diggs left the locker room before the coaches and some of the players even got back.
Yeah, he was like, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, so what's up with that? I mean, he was complaining about the amount of times he got the ball, I guess, from Josh Allen. So after 3 years, are they just done?
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
there's a lot of questions.
You
to be
wouldn't want
answered with
to
Buffalo.
waste a talent like Diggs, but I don't know.
Listen, the problems for Buffalo, I felt like really started with Josh Allen. Like he just was he was not himself. I mean, he had Diggs open on a deep route. He missed a lot of passes. I felt like he was inaccurate, and it was like balls that could have been completions were incompletions.
Right, and we get accustomed to him seeing making these off balance, off the back foot throws,
Mhm.
and he just didn't hit any of them.
No, yeah, he just didn't have it. And also too, I felt like the Cincinnati defense was a lot better than people gave them credit for. Honestly,
Yeah.
they were when they had a 4-man rush, they were getting back there with ease. And
Mhm.
think about it, you have 5 offensive linemen. That should not be happening.
Right.
They're
And then
winning the matchups.
it's funny because I was actually going to talk about the other side. I was going to talk about the Cincy O line against the Buffalo D line because
We thought that was going to be a huge problem.
we thought Buffalo had the clear advantage there, and it was honestly the opposite.
Yeah, it was.
And we were talking about playing in the trenches, and I thought Buffalo had an advantage there, at least defensively and probably even offensively. But Cincinnati completely took over in trenches.
Well, you know what helps? Joe Burrow gets rid of the ball so quick. He is so smart for a young quarterback. Like he truthfully has so much confidence in all his receivers. Like I know Jamar Chase is obviously the best of the group, but he has as much confidence, I think, in Jamar Chase as he does with T. Higgins and Hayden Hurst. Like he'll throw all these guys the ball. He does such a great job of spreading out the ball. Like
No, he
really
does. And I felt like even when he would feel a little bit of pressure, he still had enough time where he could survey the field and throw
Mixon too.
the ball to Chase and Hurst.
Balls to the running backs, like he
Yeah.
does it all.
They also fed him in the run game. They gave him the ball 20 times.
Yeah, well, actually, Tony Romo was making this point yesterday that when you have a backup O lineman, like you have some backups in on the O line, it's actually easier to run the ball because O linemen are kind of usually bigger than D linemen, so you do have a little bit of an advantage there. And we saw that advantage. Like even though it was the backups, they were just better.
No, definitely. I felt like they just came in looser. I felt like this game was all about Buffalo and they were kind of expected to win just because, I don't know, they're kind of this team of destiny right now. And they just came up short again. It's just disappointing.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. I felt like that game, I know I said I thought it was over on the first play, but for most people, I think everybody thought this game is over going into the fourth quarter. Like Buffalo just looked demoralized.
There was never a point in the game where I thought, okay, Buffalo's going to come back and maybe win this game. I never felt it. It never hit. I mean,
no.
At 14-0 even, I was like, okay, Cincinnati really has this in total control.
I felt like they would have needed a touchdown after that Jamar Chase no catch in the end zone. Obviously that was like a little bit of a play that we thought was a touchdown, but got ruled incomplete. And I don't know. I thought that was a chance for them to get some momentum, but obviously their offense was just completely ineffective. And that's kind of
well, and it's funny too, right? Yeah,
it just comes back to the offense every single time. They only put up 10 points.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it's not like they were getting killed. I mean, they were only down 10 most of the game before they end up losing by 17. I mean, I felt like in the middle of the game, Buffalo's D kind of settled in after giving up the 2 touchdowns. The offense, like you said, was the reason why they lost this game. You can't win a playoff game with 10 points. Come on.
No, absolutely not.
I was just shocked that it wasn't one of those games where it's almost like, oh, Cincinnati marched down the field, touchdown. Buffalo marched down the field, touchdown. I thought we were going to get more of those table tennis kind of games. It was just back and forth, back and
You
forth.
thought it was going to be a shootout.
Yeah. And little did I know it was going to snow. So
yeah,
I don't know if that played a part, but that's no excuse. That's no excuse at all, especially for Buffalo, who was the home team, who plays in this 2-3 times a year. So, yeah, it's just a disappointment on the side of the Bills.
I really cannot understate what the Bengals did yesterday and how impressive it was. I felt like a lot of people kind of disrespected the Bengals once again. Like that line, 5.5, that's disrespectful, especially with the way that game ended up.
Right.
And then also there was the whole crowd of, oh, the Ravens would have won if they had Lamar. Well, hey, maybe that's true, but the Bengals might still be very, very good. Right?
Yeah.
Because I think there was this sense that like, oh, they really got handed that game against the Ravens. And that very well may be true, but they certainly took this one away from the Bills. And now we're going to talk about their opponent in a little bit, but that's a team who they've had the number again. They've had their number. They
I mean,
had
yeah,
the Chiefs number.
we've seen this movie over and over and over again, Bengals Chiefs. So we'll talk about the Chiefs a little bit later, and then we'll obviously talk about Bengals Chiefs probably more on Friday. But yeah, another interesting matchup we're gonna get between Burrow and Mahomes. So I guess buckle up because there's gonna be some fireworks there. But I guess we'll go to the Saturday slate, and I guess we'll start with the night game. Keep the reverse chronological order going here between the Giants and the Eagles. And this was all one-sided. I was actually completely shocked at how one-sided it was. The Eagles won 38-7, and it kind of felt like, at least for me, just because I watched all the Eagles games, it felt like how they were playing earlier in the year, where they kind of get all their points in one quarter or one half, and then they kind of fall asleep. It kind of felt that way, except I don't know if they felt like totally asleep in the second half, but they were close to being asleep because they only put up 10 in the second half. But then again, they didn't really have to, I don't know,
Only 10.
only 10.
As if they didn't put up 28 in
Right,
the second quarter.
Yeah. It's just, it felt like the way they were playing earlier in the year. They got out to huge leads, and the defense kind of does its part or does enough to keep the lead. And yeah, they kind of just coasted to the end. They kind of just running the ball. Here you go, here you go, here you go. It's not like they opened up the playbook at all in the second half, because they really didn't have to, because partly the Giants just couldn't score. They didn't score until 6:15 left in the third. But I don't know. What did you see? Because you're the outsider here.
No, I want to hear what you saw.
You want to hear mine first? Okay.
I want to hear about the offense.
Yeah, so I'll go with Jalen Hurts first. He didn't really, I don't know, have too many explosive plays, just because, I don't know, he only had 150 something passing yards. I mean, he didn't have to do that much. I don't know. I just thought like Gainwell was phenomenal. I think that's another guy that kind of gets lost because you talk about Brown and Smith so much, and Goddard and Sanders, but I thought Gainwell kind of stole the show a little bit. But Sanders also had a great game because he got the ball a lot, and 90 yards is 90 yards. But I was surprised that AJ Brown didn't do as much, because I said coming in, like, you got to feed him and Smith was okay. I thought Smith had a decent game, but AJ Brown, I think, is a guy that, I don't know, if you're not feeding him the ball, he can't really get in a rhythm. I feel like that's concerning, especially if you're going up against San Francisco next week. I feel like he's the kind of guy you kind of need to get going, because you don't want to really play in the middle of the field against them. You kind of want to go to the outside. So I don't know. I feel like they should give him the ball more, but I don't know. I just felt like the defense was just all over the Giants. I don't know. They didn't really let them do what they wanted to do. I felt like they contained them.
The Giants offense had no chance against the Eagles. They were just a complete mismatch. And then also, we heard about the Giants D line being the strength of their team. Absolutely killed by the Eagles O line. The Eagles O line was phenomenal. I mean, we're going to be seeing two of the best O lines going up. Like, obviously they don't go up against each other, but you know, the Eagles do have a phenomenal O line. They're going to be going up against a great defense. And, you know, the same can be
Even
said.
vice versa. Even the Niners O line and the Eagles D line.
Yeah.
That's a good matchup.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing some phenomenal matchups in the trenches in the next round. But in this one, I thought the Eagles dominated on both sides of the ball. And, you know, Hurts didn't do a lot because he didn't really have to. I felt like they were just running the ball with such ease. Why do anything else but run? And then also, of course, Boston Scott touchdown. Just of course. I mean, that's just like a slap in the face to like any like Giant fan. I think.
I know. I don't want to sound selfish or anything, but I guess it was just inevitable. It was going to come at some point, right?
Yeah, I think Sirianni might be a little bit of a troll. He might have wanted to see it happen. I mean, there was that one point where they were up, and it looked like he was going to go for 2 or something, and then they ended up just kicking anyway.
But they got up 27.
I didn't know what he was doing, but I mean, was he just trying to? I mean, imagine he actually went for 2 up that much against the Giants. That would have been a little disrespectful, I think.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would say for the Giant offense is that they didn't really have explosive passing plays at all. And the key guy that the Eagles shut down completely was Isaiah Hodgins. He only had 1 catch.
The key. I mean, come on.
I know. I'm only saying key is.
Receivers are not.
No, they're not.
Key guy.
The only reason I said key was just because the week before he went off for like 105.
No.
That's the only reason I said key.
Yeah, you're right.
But they don't have anyone that's out of this world, or not even.
No. He might be
Richie James.
Yeah, I mean,
Richie James is their leading receiver. 7 catches for 51 yards. And then Barkley had 2 for 21, and everyone else had 1 catch each.
Yeah. I mean, the receiving core there.
I think that's clearly what they need to address in the offseason is they need to
Blair and corner
figure that out. Yeah. I mean,
and probably
I'm
some lineman spots.
Yeah.
Evan Neal did not play good. He was getting absolutely destroyed by Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, they have a couple pieces there that they can keep, but Evan Neal, they got to figure that out.
That is bad. That is
whether it's him or someone else. But I think
he was a very high draft pick.
right,
first round pick.
Yeah.
So that's kind of not good.
Do you move on or you give him one more shot?
I think you got to give him one more shot, but it's not looking too great.
Yeah, I just thought, I don't know, as an Eagles fan, when they got out to 14-0 lead, 21-0 lead, 20-0 lead, I just wasn't worried at all.
Yeah. So since we've talked about the 49ers and the Eagles here both already, I do want to hear, like, how are you feeling about that matchup?
I guess the first initial reaction was, yeah, this is going to be way tougher than what we just faced. I mean, the Niners are a high step above than the Giants, but
you shouldn't even be comparing last game.
No, I mean, this is a new ball game. And it's just the thing with the Niners is that Purdy can spray it around to so many people. And I love Bradbury and Slay. I mean, I love both of them as corners because they're both pretty good. It's just you can only cover so much. It just depends on, I guess, who would you try to, I guess, limit? Because you got McCaffrey to worry about, you got Samuel to worry about, you got Kittle to worry about. Even Ayuk can't be ignored either. So I don't know. It's almost like, do you try to shut down, I don't know, 2 of the 4, and you kind of let the other 2 go off? I don't know how to do it. I know
exactly what you're saying, and here's the thing.
Because you'd think Ayuk would be on the outside, probably for the most of the game, because he's really just a receiver and nothing else. Because Deebo Samuel is kind of the wild card, and McCaffrey is too, because you can put both of them in the backfield. You can kind of run, I don't know, jet sweeps, some trick plays. You can put them on the outside as receivers. I think those are the 2 that are tough covers.
Yeah, no, but here's the thing. The Cowboys defense did a pretty respectful job against the 49ers offense. It can be done.
So maybe you use a little bit of tape from that game.
Absolutely.
And then you apply what you do.
And I think really, like, all those things that you just named, like, first off, let's start with McCaffrey. If the Eagles D-line dominates, they can stop them there. And that's going to be really tough to do. And frankly, if you want to be honest with you, I actually think San Francisco may have the advantage in that area.
They might. And also, I can't forget this guy either. Elijah Mitchell. He's the backup. Mm-hmm. They were giving him the ball out last night. He was being pretty effective.
Yeah.
And I know he's nowhere near the talent of Christian McCaffrey, but before McCaffrey got traded there, Mitchell was the lead back before he got injured for a little bit of the middle of the year. And he can be a bell cow. You can give him the ball a lot. He's a pretty physical back.
So that's one area. But in those other areas, I mean, Deebo Samuel did not do anything too impressive yesterday. Same with Ayuk. I will say the one guy, though, that Purdy seems to have the best connection with is absolutely George Kittle.
Yeah.
And for the Eagles defense, I'm not really sure who's going to cover him because it can be a lot of different guys. Could be like one of your, like maybe CJ Gardner-Johnson in the slot, right? Like in that, because they do put Kittle out there sometimes. Sometimes they'll put him in the line, but I don't know who really covers the tight ends for you guys. But that's going to have to be a big focus.
Yeah.
Because that is not going to be an easy task because George Kittle is pretty good. And this is honestly the best quarterback that has, in terms of throwing the ball to him, really.
Which is crazy to say.
Yeah. And he's become like the number 1 option outside of McCaffrey. But in the passing game, he really has a good connection with Purdy.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about who's going to cover Kittle on the Eagles side, I think the last thing that an Eagles fan want would be one of those linebackers. I don't think you want Kaiser White or Hassan Reddick.
You cannot use a linebacker on
back there. I think that's a nightmare.
You have to use a safety.
I don't know. I just felt like
that would be
the worst thing ever.
Well,
and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I feel like it could happen just based on the play. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to Jonathan Gannon, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess in Gannon we trust.
I mean, I don't know. It's definitely something that you're going to have to be worried about going into Sunday's game.
Right. And then I guess if you flip it to the other side of the ball, I don't know. If there's one advantage that I actually think we have, like not a clear advantage, but I would say that we probably have it, if you ask most people, it's probably our wide receivers against the corners. I like Brown and Smith over their corners. I feel like that's where we need to attack them. And I said that last week going into the Giant game. And we didn't really do it that much. I mean, Smith got his fair share of targets and catches, but Brown didn't do too much. I feel like Brown can be such a difference maker. If you get him the ball, I mean, more times than not, he's probably going to come down. He's just so physical. I think that's what makes him really good. And then, not to mention, I feel like after the catch, he can really do a lot of damage. And same thing with Smith, but Smith's more of a clean route runner, just more of a polished route runner than Brown. But I think that's where the Eagles need to attack. And then, yeah, I think the trenches, though. I mean, we keep going back to the trenches. The trenches on both sides of the ball are going to be massive for both teams.
Absolutely. And both these teams are very focused on running the ball. So it'll be interesting to see. And here's one of the things that the 49ers, I will say, they really haven't had to worry about, and that's a running quarterback. In all the games that they have played since this Purdy run,
right?
They really haven't had to worry about it. The last time they did was against the Chiefs, and it did not really go like
right. And Mahomes
absolutely destroyed that.
And he's not really a running quarterback
either. No, he's just so hard to tackle is really the point that I'm
right. Also, I feel like he chooses good spots to run in too. I mean, that could be another thing. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks like Geno Smith twice, Carson Wentz, whoever played for the Cardinals in that one game. Oh yeah, Heineke / Wentz. You're right.
I don't even remember who played for the Cardinals in that one game.
McSorley?
Yeah, no. I don't even remember who it was.
Colt McCoy. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. The point is they have not went up.
Dak Prescott, I mean, he can run a little bit, but
he ran at one point yesterday.
He's not a bad runner. He's not really known for it.
He didn't really run that much this season.
He actually kind of hurt him a little bit.
But yeah, when he did run the one time, he got some yards. So that'll be something that's interesting to see. And I hope Hurts is okay with running. It seems like he was perfectly fine with that on Saturday. Yeah. But that's going to be, I think, a difference in this game. Seriously.
Right, because it's almost like the Niners.
Whole nother sprinkle.
It's almost like the Niners with their linebackers. Obviously, they want to disguise them because you could have them come up to the line and, oh, snap, they're going to come right at Hurts. Or, I don't know, they're going to drop back in coverage and try to clean up the middle of the field and not allow quick slants or whatever. But now, if you get them out in motion, it's kind of like they got to guess 50-50. I don't know. Once that ball is going to be handed off, is it actually going to be handed off or is he going to keep it and go the other way? It's not an element of surprise.
Absolutely. And I will say, though, if there's any linebackers who are probably up for the task, it's probably the ones that the 49ers have.
I mean, they can do anything.
Greenlaw and Fred Warner are, without a doubt, the best linebacker combo in the NFL.
No doubt, yeah.
I mean, they are really, really good.
Yeah, the Eagles are going to have their hands full.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, Eagles have probably the best O-line, probably San Francisco's number 2. These are, I think, the two, without a doubt, best teams in the NFC. Like, you know what? This is probably what this has been pointing to for most of the year. I think you would agree with that, Jeff.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of these playoff games have been rematches from the regular season. The Niners and Eagles haven't played at all. So this is the first time that they're seeing each other.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. All right. So let's talk about the Chiefs and the Jaguars now.
Yeah, this is the final game that we're going to talk about. And this is actually the first game of the weekend. It was the 4:30 game on Saturday. And this was an interesting game. Coming in, these teams met back in the regular season, and Kansas City won pretty comfortably. And it kind of felt that way too in this game, but at the same time, Jacksonville just wouldn't go away. The final was 27-20 Chiefs. But I will say, I mean, early on, Kansas City comes down, they get a touchdown. You're like, oh, here we go again. But Jacksonville came right back. They tied at 7, and then Kansas City got a little bit of a lead, and they kind of kept it for a while. And Jacksonville's offense kind of let them down. I felt like they had some chances to make it interesting, but they just weren't able to do so. And the big storyline that I have to mention is Patrick Mahomes' injury. He was injured, I believe, in the second quarter. You correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, it was in the second quarter.
It was a high ankle sprain. That was what it was, according to the MRI from yesterday. So that's definitely a storyline to look for going into their game against the Bengals coming up on Sunday. But what did you see from the Chiefs? Did you like how they were, I guess, both sides of the ball? I thought they were pretty good. I mean, I don't have too many complaints.
So offense, I thought they did a good job of running their offense. Obviously, Kelsey was a complete
game wrecker,
matchup nightmare for Jacksonville, and he took over. There's no other way to say it. As for the rest of the Chiefs offense, I thought they did a really good job of running the ball, especially when Chad Henne came into the game, because Chad Henne played for a decent amount. He had a drive that resulted in a touchdown, which is, I guess, speaks to not only the great O line that Kansas City has. Kansas City has a very good O line as well, and in play calling, because Andy Reid is obviously a phenomenal play caller, and it shows you that hey, even if Mahomes is out, they're still putting up points, which is insane. I mean, he is so smart as a coach, Andy Reid. He is one of the better play callers, and he was doing such a good job, especially because the Jaguars were playing zone, and not to mention they're playing so far off the ball that just let Travis Kelce go find open space and let Chad Henne just throw it to him. And that was the smartest thing because not only would they just do that, but then the Jaguars couldn't tackle Travis Kelce. And it was just a complete nightmare. He took over that game, had 2 touchdowns.
Well, you bring up Chad Henne coming in, that touchdown drive that he led. I mean, that was the difference. They won by 7 points.
Yeah, well, not only was that the difference, there was a lot of miscues by the Jaguars, particularly on offense. I mean, the most obvious one was the Christian Kirk drop pass deep down the field. That could have been a touchdown right there. Instead, the Jaguars did not get anything on that drive. And then there was also the Jamal Agnew fumble.
That was a huge
That was
play.
a killer. That completely changed that game.
Yeah, it's such a bummer too, because he's a dangerous kick returner.
Yeah, he is a dangerous kick returner, but at the end of the day, that was a mistake that just can't happen, and it absolutely just killed them. Absolutely killed
And
them.
that was actually, I think, at the red zone, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
It was
That
very
was
close.
right near the end zone.
And honestly, the Jaguars, their offense has a lot of potential to grow next year. I really think they're going to take another step forward. Trevor, the one thing he's got to stop is the interceptions. He went through a nice stretch this year where he did not have any, and I think it was about 5 or 6 games. And that's really good. That's what you want to see from a young quarterback, and especially one like him who can do so much. He can do the deep ball. That throw to Kirk was on the money. I don't know what Collinsworth was talking about. Hit him in the hands. But also he can run. Like that's one of the most underrated parts of his game that I've seen this year is him running.
I feel like they don't use it a lot.
They don't, but they do because it actually helps ETN because against the Cowboys, when they played the Cowboys, Trevor Lawrence ran a lot that day, and it is such a problem. Like you just don't really think you're gonna have to account for it. And he has some sneaky, pretty good moves. I'm not gonna lie. Like I remember being shocked that he had, the elusiveness that he did. But at the end of the day, he can be, I think, a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I think he's on his way to being a top 10. I do. I think if he takes another step forward next year, he'll definitely be there. But the interceptions are what has to stop.
Oh,
And also,
100%.
he's going to have Calvin Ridley next season. So that should help too.
Off the suspension. I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
So we'll see how that happens.
And you know what? They kind of did revitalize their offensive skill players. I mean, they really did a lot of work in free agency to bring in Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, and even Zay Jones has been okay. Guys that he can throw to.
They have a lot of guys who I would never consider to be top receivers, but they're all like, average to maybe slightly above average.
Right. I mean, they could be
But
maybe
Ridley-
2 or
Ridley-
3.
Ridley can be something for them.
He could be a 1.
He can definitely.
He's been around, I think, long enough where maybe he can fill those shoes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. But he can, if he plays to his best, he can definitely be a 1 for them, and that's the hope. That's definitely the hope.
Right. And then if they fix, I don't know, their defensive issues, think maybe they fill up the secondary a little
Yeah,
bit.
the secondary is an issue. Kind of.
They do have Trayvon Walker, who was the #1 pick.
Yeah, not
Um,
great though at stopping the run as well. So they'll.
I guess that's a piece you build around.
Yeah,
but
their defense
yeah.
is really gotta be taking some steps up.
it's actually really funny that the defense is the issue, because when we were talking about them 5 years ago, when they made it to the AFC Championship, the defense is what carried them there, and the offense was the question marks. Now it's the opposite.
Yeah, but I mean, I still think their offense can be better.
Oh, it definitely can. I don't
thought
think it's bad
I thought
now.
they
It's just
did a pretty good job hanging in there yesterday because I'm sorry, Saturday.
they have more
There were
strides to
stories-
take. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not absolutely as horrible as maybe we're making it seem, or maybe I'm making it seem. Because there was a while in that game where the Jags offense wasn't doing anything, but the score was staying the same. So I do have to give them some credit.
Right.
At least
Especially
they
because it's the
played-
Chiefs.
Yeah, especially because it's the Chiefs. I mean, everybody knows how tough that is.
Mhm. Also, an added bonus for the Chiefs, and we'll talk about more of this on Friday just because of the AFC and NFC championships is that they actually will host the AFC championship. They don't have to worry about playing in Atlanta
Yeah.
because Buffalo did not win. So
Yep.
that's a big, I think, advantage for the Chiefs.
Yeah, that is a big
Huge home
advantage.
crowd advantage for them.
Yeah, but it's a rematch of last year's AFC championship.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more, I think, on the other side of this break.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll take a quick break here on After the Whistle. But when we come back, we'll talk about maybe the championship games for next week and some other stuff around the sports world. So stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back to WLOY, Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOY.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle, Loyola's premier sports talk radio show, airing every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. and Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Welcome back. I'm Jeffrey Bazzi alongside my co-host Jimmy Cody, and we broke down the NFL divisional games, and we'll talk more about the conference championships on Friday, but we'll do a little preview now. And I feel like the Bengals Chiefs game is going to be something special. We got it last year, and to the majority surprise, I mean, the Bengals found a way to win, and they ended up being in the Super Bowl, nearly winning the Super Bowl, actually. But yeah, we're getting this game again, Jimmy, and we're very excited because it's all about the quarterbacks, I think, in this one. I mean, both teams are very good, but this is all about Burrow and Mahomes.
Yeah, and Burrow has had Mahomes' number. That's the one guy that I would say, besides maybe Tom Brady, that has had Mahomes' number since he's joined the league. I mean, he's been such a dominant quarterback. He's been in the AFC Championship every single year as a starter.
I mean, that's why they call the AFC Championship the Chiefs Invitational.
Yeah, maybe
it's 5 years in a row.
Maybe the Chiefs call it that.
Yeah,
Losers.
I heard someone reference it, so that's why I used it.
When it's grim, be the reaper. Shut up. Like all Andy Reid's stupid catchphrase that he has.
But back to your point, you're 100% right. Burrow has been Mahomes' kryptonite for the last year. You go back to, I think it was week 17 of the 2022 season, or 2021 season, excuse me. Burrow won that matchup. They met in the AFC Championship last season, as we talked about. Burrow won that one, and then they met earlier in the year in Cincinnati, and guess what? Burrow won that one too. So he's 3-0 against Mahomes, and he just shows up.
Yeah, every time he does it, it's the same thing. Like, it's not like the Chiefs don't show up. It's just that Joe Burrow is also showing up with Jamar Chase, and they're better. And listen, the way that they ran the ball against the Bills, it's going to happen again against the Chiefs, because the Chiefs defense is just not good. I'm sorry, it's not. Like, you saw what the Jaguars did, and I didn't even think their offense looked that great. I thought they were making a lot of miscues. But listen, this Bengal offense, if it's clicking, it's going to put up points against the Chiefs offense or Chiefs defense. Like, it's going to put up points. The Chiefs defense just isn't good. That's a fact. And the Bengals offense is very good. Like, what player on the Chiefs defense do you think is going to be able to stop any of this? They have one player, I think that's good. Chris Jones.
Yeah, that's the person I was thinking of too. I think he's the only guy that can really
he's one
make a difference. And he can only rush the passer. It's not like he can cover Jamar Chase.
Yeah, exactly. So they're still going to be able to click. And frankly, I'll say this. If the Bengals defense just plays kind of like half better than the Chiefs defense does, they're going to win the game, because the Bengals offense can be putting up so much points.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming in this game. They just held Josh Allen to 10. I mean, they got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and they put up a great defensive performance last time they played the Chiefs.
Right.
The last two or three times, because we know what Mahomes can do. We know that he can put up 35 with ease.
Even down the stretch of this year, I felt like the Bengals D was kind of not stealing the spotlight, but I feel like they were getting a little overlooked, because it's all about Burrow and Chase and the offense for that team. But the defense is really playing well.
Yeah, and you know what?
In December.
You know what they do really
in January.
They're really good against the run. Like, they are very underrated against the run. I first noticed this when they played the Titans and they shut down Derrick Henry. Absolutely shut him down. And I'm going to be honest, Mahomes has got a kind of a bum ankle. You would think the Chiefs would look, especially since they have that rookie running back, Pacheco, you would think they kind of look to maybe lean on their run a little bit, especially because they have a good O-line. I don't know if they can just pencil that in as, hey, we're going to be able to run the ball here. I mean, that's what they hope, but there's a very good chance that the Bengals will be able to stop it. My biggest question though for the Bengals defense is how you stop in Travis Kelce.
Yeah, that's obviously the one concern that I would have too. I mean, you cannot let him do what he did to the Jags. I mean, that's just simple as that.
He's probably gonna score. You just gotta hope everybody else is just not with it, or that their pass rush gets there before they can throw the ball to Travis Kelce.
Right.
That's really what you need.
I mean, he's priority number one for the Bengals to stop because honestly, they have other guys they throw to. I mean, they're not Travis Kelce though. It's not like we're talking about Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster. It's like Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is the number one focus.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah. All right. So should we move into some Loyola basketball talk, shall
Yeah,
we?
we should.
Yeah, so haven't talked about the men's and women's team too much, but yeah, we're gonna get into it now. So the Loyola men's team, they are coming off a tough loss to Boston University up in Boston on Saturday by a score of 66-53. And that leaves them now with a 2-6 record in Patriot League play. And Jimmy, from what I've watched, I know that the win-loss record isn't good, and the team definitely wants it to be better. And they have some chances too coming up to improve that record. I feel like in most games, even when the Hounds lose, it's almost like they're kind of in the game for the majority of it. And then all of a sudden, there's just something that happens. It's almost like someone flicks a switch and the other team will go on a 10-0 run and then they'll just lose it and get out of control. It's almost like they just need to, I don't know, play two solid halves instead of playing one good half and one terrible half. Maybe it's just me. I just feel like they're close to kind of figuring it out, and they have the pieces. I like some of the pieces on this team, and they have a lot of veteran leadership. You look at Jalen Andrews and Kenny Jones and even Golden DK. They've all been there for multiple years, and I don't know, it just hasn't clicked.
Well, here's why it hasn't clicked. We're not making the three ball. We don't make the three ball very much. Losing Cam is hurting us a lot. That's kind of the difference from last year to this year. We're seeing that we can't really shoot as well. I mean, look at what Cam has done at Rutgers, right? Like he's been really good for them. They were
As a starter
as
too.
as a starter. Like we cannot speak enough about what we lost. Now let's focus on what we have. With what we do have, we got to shoot better on offense. Now the looks are just sometimes I feel like with our team especially, we get them and we just don't make them. And in that case, that's just bad luck sometimes. But we've shown games where we can put up points. It's just that, you know, a lot of times I feel like we find ourselves kind of going cold at points. Like this was a problem last year. We kind of do it again this year. I just feel like we're always in these games at some point, and then it either gets away from us because the offense kind of falls apart, or we kind of get it to click. And I sometimes I feel like when our offense gets good, then our defense doesn't click. Because if you look at a lot of the games, like there are games that when we score 70, the other teams are putting up 70. And that's a lot of points to give up. And obviously it's a lot of points to score too. So in some of those games, we're scoring up 70 points. We're not to get wins. It's just everything seems like to go wrong. It just hasn't really gone our way. And I'll say this, we do have veteran presence, but at this point, we need to just be worried about playing better night in and night out, because honestly, the conference tournament is what matters the most.
Right. I think gaining confidence coming into February is going to be key, because if you start to build some chemistry with whoever's out there, I mean, that's obviously a good thing. And getting Veljko Ilić back is big. He was out for the start of the season, but now he's back. I think that's a guy that they can try to incorporate into the offense and the defensive schemes. But
they got to win these next two games.
I was going to say, I was about to bring it up.
The next two games are might be the most winnable. I mean, listen, at Lafayette is going to be tough because any road game is just tough, especially in D1 basketball. And Lafayette is 6-15. We're 7-14. But then we play Bucknell here, who we've already beaten. We beat Bucknell on the road.
And they're the team that's below Loyola in standings for the Patriot League.
So that is games.
There's opportunity there.
Those are two games that we got to win. Then after that, of course, will be Colgate. That'll be tough.
It's a tough task.
Colgate,
That's a tall task.
But then, in February, we end with 4 home games in a row. So maybe we can kind of get it together.
Gain some
Yeah,
steam.
gain some steam by winning at home. I do feel like we played that a lot better at home.
Oh, no doubt.
So well, I'm
And I
sorry.
feel like the role players
I'm
play
sorry.
better at
One
home.
of the games is at Navy.
So it's like a 3 out of 4 at home kind of
Yeah, it's
stretch.
a 3 out of 4 at
Okay.
home. But Navy obviously isn't the most far place. In fact, it's probably literally the closest place.
45 minutes to an hour
Yeah,
drive.
exactly. So it's not like it's that bad. It's just like when you were a kid, you used to drive to the games.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the point is we need to see some improvement from the Hounds if we want to, get things a little bit better.
Right. And you bring up losing Cam Spencer. Obviously, that's a huge loss. He was the go-to guy offensively. And the year before that, it was Santi Aldama before he left for the NBA draft. I guess the difference is this year's team, I don't think there's a standout scorer. It's not like you're giving the ball to one guy and you're getting out of the way and you're going to say, hey, go get me a bucket. I don't think that's the vibe with this team. And I'm looking here. I mean, Kenny Jones and Jalen Andrews are probably the two main scorers. And they both can score. We know that. I feel like other guys have stepped up more often than not. I mean, I love Chris Kuzemka. He's played well this year. He's shooting the ball really well. I think he's kind of finding himself a little bit and gaining confidence. And then you got Alonzo Faure, who can kind of stretch the floor a little bit. I mean, he can shoot it from the outside a little bit. Doesn't really take many threes, but he can be pretty dominant inside. And then I think Dion Perry, he's kind of finding himself a little bit. He can be a streaky scorer. So I feel like there's some guys that you can lean on night in and night out. I don't think all of them are going to be, I don't know, clicking at the same time. It's just hard because there's only one ball, but I mean, it's not like
it's also
you have to give it to one guy. I feel like you kind of have to rely on others and handle your own business.
Well, here's a huge problem with our offense that I kind of forgot to talk about. It's the turnovers. We just turn the ball over way too much. We just make too many just poor decisions, and it sets us back a lot. I mean, we really have a lot of turnovers, and it's just like if you look like, hey, I know you said Kenny Jones is like our leading scorer. Unfortunately, he also is averaging over 3 turnovers a game. So we had to find a kind of a balance. But also, I don't think it's on just one guy. Like obviously Kenny, yes, point guard, had a great season last year in terms of assists. Really, where it was I thought the place that he took a step forward and shooting the ball too. He can get very hot when in terms of shooting. Like he can make a few in a row. We also need Jalen, I think, to step up too. Like that is a guy that I think, rely on. When those two are playing at their best, I think we have a chance against absolutely anybody. But also, one thing that I think we'll all agree with is that the Patriot League is a tough conference.
It is every single year. You're
yeah.
going to get everyone's best shot night in and night out.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. Oh, if we lose a game here or lose a game there, because we're not going to go undefeated in that. It's just about we need nightly improvement. And I think we can get that. I think we can get a lot better in the next month.
Yeah, and I would go off of what you said about Kenny Jones and Jalen Andrews. Listen, they're going to have the ball a lot in their hands just because they're guards. I mean, that's just natural.
Absolutely.
But even if they don't have the ball, I feel like you can just set screens and try to get them catch and shoot open looks. Because I feel like they're pretty good when they both are wide open and they're catching and shooting it rather than putting it on the court and shooting off the dribble. I feel like if you get them open looks, just simple catch and shoot, I feel like you can get them going. And then maybe they get the ball in their hands and they become more of drivers. I feel like they're by far the two guys that are going to be scoring the most night in and night out. But there are other guys, like we mentioned, who are more than capable of stepping up. So, like you said, there is some opportunity with the 2 games this week. You're 100% right, though. We do need to win both. It starts with the game, I believe you said the Lafayette game's on Wednesday. So, got to take care of business Wednesday.
And also, one more thing I forgot to mention. I feel like a broken record between the Broncos and Loyola basketball because I'm just always repeating the same things. Free throws. We got to make free throws. As a team, we're not very good at that. We have only, I think, 2 guys over 80%. So, and I think only 4 over 70. So,
I mean, it's also key to make them down the stretch.
Absolutely.
In addition to
turnovers and free throws,
just making the most of them.
If we can change that, I bet our record would be a lot better.
Yeah. And especially when you have meaningful games come March, I mean, you got to do the simple things well. I mean, I know it's so cliche, but keeping the ball from the other team, don't turn it over, get to the line, and then make them pay for fouling you, make the free throws. It sounds so simple, and I know they can do it. We just have to see it more often, and I know they can do it. I have hope. But I wanted to bring up the women's team for a little bit because, they actually started pretty well, the Loyal women's basketball team. They had a pretty good start to the season. I believe they were over 500 at one point. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were 4-3 or 5-4 or 6-5. I honestly forget which record it was, but they were over 500 at one point. And they have started conference play, and they, like the men's team, are 2-6 in Patriot League play. And on Saturday, I actually went to the game. They played Boston University here at home. And you know what? I thought they played pretty well for the majority of the game. It was almost like one of those weird games where you're scoring a lot of points during one stretch, but you can't stop them on the other end. And then when you go cold on offense, it's almost like they score every single time. It's almost like you have one thing going, but you can't have the other thing going at the same time. You kind of need both to click, but it never really clicked. But Jimmy, I'm not sure if you've caught a lot of the women's team's games this year, or at least been in the loop, but obviously Lex Tarian and Talia Dixon, they're the two main scorers, but there's some other girls who can score too. I mean, scoring hasn't really been too much of an issue for them, especially recently, but I don't know. I feel like defensively they can clean it up, but I feel like for them, it's definitely a slower paced game. So you kind of have to move the ball around more, but I don't know. What do you see from the women's team? Maybe what do you like and what can they do moving forward?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. I think the coach has come in. This is their second year, I believe,
Yes, her
right?
name is Danielle O'Banian.
Yeah, I believe coach has done a phenomenal job, honestly. Like, I think from where the program was to where it is now is a lot better. So I would start off by acknowledging that. And also rebuilds don't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time to build a program, especially because I believe in 2020 we did not have a conference win.
Yeah, I think you might be right about
Yeah.
that,
So
unfortunately.
that's a really rough place to build from. And now they're not just winning some games, but now they're competitive a lot more in the conference, and that's good to see. Obviously, Lex is only a sophomore, so she'll be here for not only just this season, but hopefully two more after, and then who knows, maybe even a fifth year here is potentially. It's always possible with the new COVID rules and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think what we have to worry about is the same thing as the men's team. It's just constant improvement throughout the season. We want to see that because you just want to get to March and you want to be at a point where you're playing well because anything can happen in March. We know that. It doesn't matter if it's a game where you're clearly the underdog or if it's a game where you're supposed to win. We've seen like crazy happen, especially in college basketball. So I think
Oh, we have.
you just want to get to a point where you're playing well, where you're comfortable with your team, where you're playing good defense, you're not turning the ball over, you're making free throws, you're making smart decisions, and you have confidence as a team because a team with confidence is really a more dangerous team than a team with a good record. We see that all the time in college basketball.
No, for sure. And I think for them, it's like I said with the men's team, they just gotta keep playing and fighting and kind of finding their chemistry and finding themselves. And I don't know, maybe March they could surprise some people because I do think there are some good things with the women's team. I think obviously Lex Tarian is by far the number one option, and I feel like she's the go-to scorer on that team. But I feel like when she gets the ball in the post, I feel like that's the key. If you get her in deep post position, if she can, I don't know, draw a double team or something, I feel like that could free up shooters on the outside. And they have some shooters who are shooting over 30% from downtown, such as Bree Rozzi and Lee Dixon, just to name a few. I feel like that could free up other shots for the other women on the team. And I don't know, and maybe you can kind of start spreading the ball around. It's not like, oh, every time we're gonna come down the court, oh, Lex is gonna get the ball. I don't know. You could switch it up, maybe go a little pick and roll. I feel like there's a lot of things to do. I feel like it helps when you have a dominant big because everything kind of revolve around the big. And then if the big, I don't know, draws so much attention, you could free up other people. I think it's like the NBA with you look at Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid. I mean, you look when they get the ball, they get doubled. You have three guys open on the other side of the court. I feel like that could be something similar to the women's team.
Yeah, that's a good point. Great point.
For sure. But yeah, hopefully for both teams moving forward, they can find their way in Patriot League play. They have some room to grow, but I think they can do it. And hopefully the next few games they can get some wins and gain some confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I think that's all the time we have for today. Jimmy, is there anything else you want to add before we log off here?
No, can't think so.
Yeah, we'll have
Can't think of anything.
no, I know what you meant.
But,
We'll have
I don't know.
we'll have another show on Friday. We'll be previewing
See you Friday. All right.
the NFL championship games, the conference championship games, that is. So we'll see you then. Thank you again for listening, and we'll be back on Friday.